If you are a teacher interested in building a fulfilling career in instructional design, there are three key steps that you can take. Do you know what those three steps are? If not, stick around because I'm going to tell you all about those three steps as well as address some of the common myths that we often hear as teachers making the transition into instructional design. By the time we finish this accelerated ID session, we're going to have covered three things. First of all, we're going to talk about those misconceptions that we often hear. Second, we're going to address the three steps that you can take to build a fulfilling career in instructional design. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about how you can reignite your passion as an educator. But before I do that, I want to share with my teacher friends that, like many of you, I am a former teacher. I taught fifth grade social studies and science in Greenville, Texas for many years before I went through something in my personal life that caused me to reevaluate what my priorities were, what I needed to do for my career, how much money I needed to make. So there were a lot of things that came up for me that led me to start exploring other career opportunities. And luckily, I found this perfect job that was in the area of instructional design, and then the rest is history. So I'm going to use that experience to continue to share with other teachers who are looking to make that transition what you can do to make that transition a little bit easier for you. So first, I just want to share, why is it that instructional design is a good career opportunity for our teachers who are looking to make that exit out of the classroom? Well, the first reason is because as teachers, you have a love of teaching, you have a love of developing people. And as a teacher that is transitioning into instructional design, you can bring that love of developing people, just instead of little people or young people, now you're going to be developing adult people, right? So you still get to have that love. And then many of us went into teaching because we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to have a career that we could be passionate about, that had purpose. And the good news is that teachers going into instructional design, you get to carry that passion with you, because as instructional designers, you are creating learning experiences that can positively influence the life of adult learners, whether that is help them in their job, help them keep their job, help them advance in their job, help them find more joy in their job. It's really, there are many different options for us. And then lastly, one of the reasons that I love the career of instructional design for teachers that are looking to make the exit from the classroom is because as a teacher, you have so many skills that you can leverage immediately as an instructional designer. And if you didn't catch one of our earlier Accelerated ID episodes on the 6 teacher skills that you can leverage immediately in a career in instructional design, I recommend that you go and you check that out. And we'll include that link in the comments for you. So just as a quick recap, we have 6 buckets of skills that we can leverage as teachers. Those include project management, communication, collaboration, technology, teaching, and curriculum development. There are so many sub-skills in each of these domains that you have immediate access to as an instructional designer. So you're not starting from scratch whenever you start your reskilling for this new career. And that's one of the reasons that I really love instructional design for teachers. We have many teachers who have already made that transition that are here in our Facebook community. We have many teachers who have already made that transition in our Accelerator student community. So this is something that is happening every day with teachers who are making that transition. So this is a real career option for our teachers. I can't communicate that strongly enough that this is a really good option for you. So let's get started with addressing some of the myths or misconceptions that we often hear about our teachers who are making that transition into instructional design. Because I don't want this narrative in your head. I don't want you to be thinking about some of these things that are out there. You know, misconceptions are like bad rumors. It gets put out into a space and it kind of takes life, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You hear it in every group. You see it in every Facebook community. You're seeing it in blog posts. So let's just take a moment to squash some of these misconceptions, to bust some of these myths, and you make the decision for yourself. Does that sound good? All right, so misconception number one is that teachers are automatically instructional designers. There are some teacher programs out there that introduce people to instructional design that say, teachers, you are instructional designers. That's just simply not true. So I know that might be heart crushing to hear that you're not an instructional designer, but you do have skills that you can use. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But it's really important that we just get rid of that misconception right now, because what often happens, or I see happen here in our community, here in our comments, in my email inbox, I see people all the time saying, hey, I'm looking to leave the classroom. Can you look at my resume so I can start applying for jobs? And these are people that are looking to go from teaching directly to applying for a job without getting reskilled because someone has told them that they are an instructional designer. While we do have great skills that we can leverage, those 6 buckets that we just talked about, that's not all that we need as instructional designers. That gives you a great leg up. It gives you a great foundation to build upon, but there's still more work that we have to do. So just keep that in mind, that as a teacher, you've got a head start versus other people that are leaving other careers, but there's still work that you have to do. So don't think that you can just go from teaching to applying for jobs to get the jobs. While that might work for some, it's a very competitive market now. So you've got to make sure that you're really skilled. And honestly, the people that are applying for jobs that don't have the skill set are hurting everybody else's chances that are teachers, because it kind of gives hiring managers, kind of a bad taste in their mouth that we've got all these teachers that are coming into instructional design, but they're not skilled. But if you are a skilled teacher, a skilled instructional designer, then that does give you an advantage. All right, so let's talk about misconception number 2. And that is that you need another degree to become an instructional designer. Well, that's just not true either. You already have a professional degree. You don't have to have another degree to become an instructional designer. I have led many L&D teams in corporate, higher ed, and not-for-profit. And in all the years that I led L&D teams or even worked on L&D teams, I only ever once had somebody that actually was skilled in instructional design or had that degree in instructional design. That's what I really should say. Only one person actually had a degree in instructional design. Everybody else took an alternative route into instructional design. So you don't have to have another degree to get there. You've already got that professional degree, but you do have to get skilled up or reskilled in instructional design. Misconception number 3, and that is, wow, I totally messed up my slides, didn't I? So, all right, so I'm just going to back that up for a second. Instead of getting another degree, there are other paths that you can take to get into instructional design and to get skilled in instructional design. Number 1, you can self-study. This is free or mostly free. Doesn't really cost you a lot unless you go and buy books or you're paying for some courses here and there, or maybe you're paying for a LinkedIn premium account so that you can access LinkedIn Learning. So you could definitely do self-study. There are lots of blogs out there. There are YouTube channels, our channel, the Instructional Design Company channel. We've got a lot of content out there that you could follow. We've got instructional design starter kits that you can download. We have a lot of resources. There are other influencers out there in the instructional design space that also have resources that you can look at. So check those things out. Those are great ways to do your self-study. There are LinkedIn groups, there are other Facebook communities. You can subscribe to different blogs and RSS feeds. You check out the library to see what you have access to. There are a lot of self-study options. Then if you don't want to go the self-study route, or maybe you want to do a combination, there are also certificate programs that you can opt into. They go anywhere from 6 weeks to 9 months to 12 months, depending on which program that you are going for. Then there's also, if you really want to get a degree, you don't have to, but if you just absolutely want one, that's makes you feel the most comfortable is to go the academic route, then you could get a master's degree or even a second master's degree. So all of these have their pros and their cons. I guess it really depends on how quickly do you want to get into instructional design? Like, are you looking to make that transition right away? Or are you planning your 3-year exit strategy? If you're on a 3-year plan, then getting another degree could be a good option for you, or doing self-study could be a good option for you. But if you know that you want to get out of the classroom by the end of this school year, then maybe you want to go with a certificate program. And if you are interested in a certificate program, then I highly recommend that you check out our Instructional Design and Tech Accelerator certificate program. That's all that I'm going to say about that. That's my shameless plug, but just know that that is an option if you want to move fast. That's why we call it our Accelerator program, because it's about accelerating your instructional design skill development. All right, so the one last thing that I want to say about whichever of these options that you choose, make sure that whatever resources, certificate program, degree program that you are plugging into is staying up with the latest trends, that it's staying current with what's happening in our field. So, for example, you've probably been hearing a ton about artificial intelligence, right? So if you're looking to plug into, let's say, a certificate program, you want to make sure that there are components that pull in artificial intelligence, how you can leverage AI in your instructional design process. The same is true for a degree program. The same is true for those self-study resources that you're going to be checking out, purchasing, whatever that is. Just make sure that it's staying up to date and current on what's trending. All right, so misconception number 3 is that you should start with the technology, right? You probably hear that, or maybe you see it in other groups. You go into a group and somebody's like, hey, I'm new. I'm ready to make this transition into instructional design. What's the technology I should start with? And then people are like, Storyline 360, Rise 360, right? So you often hear people like immediately jump into the technology. And, first of all, you don't need to spend $1,000 or more on this technology. And second of all, it's not necessarily the right place for you to start unless you really just want to focus on e-learning development and you don't really care about the instructional design process behind it. Because there is a difference between using the tool, like just becoming skilled in the use of the tool, and then being an instructional designer who knows how to use that tool. Those are two separate things. So if you are looking at becoming an instructional designer who can also use the technology, then you've got to start with that foundation in instructional design. So you need to understand adult learning theory. You need to understand how to engage the audience. You need to understand how to write learning objectives, learning outcomes, how to script that content, right? And then once you have those foundational principles down related to instructional design and adult learning theory, you've got to learn how to bring that into the technology. So you don't need to start with technology. You've got to start with understanding it, right? For example, if somebody was looking to become a surgeon, they still have to do all their foundational stuff first. So they have to understand biology, how the body works, how all the different systems and processes in the body works before they pick up that scalpel and they actually just start doing surgery. So I just wanted to share that because I see that in every group that I'm a part of. People are like, how do I start? And people are like, Rise 360, Storyline 360. My advice is to start with the foundations and really understand your adult learner. Then misconception number 4 is that the field of instructional design is too saturated. Now, I think if you go out to LinkedIn and you search jobs, and if you have a LinkedIn premium account, you can see, a little bit more detail about the different jobs that are out there. But the truth is, a lot of people are applying for a lot of jobs. There are also 300,000 teachers that exited the classroom either in 2021 or 2022. I can't remember which year that is. So, and a lot of those are hearing that instructional design is a good alternative career choice, just like I'm telling you right now, right? the thing is that a lot of people are applying for jobs in the wrong way. So it doesn't matter if there are 100 applicants for a job because only the top 20% or so, or only 20% or so, are actually applying for that job in the right way. So what's important for you to know is the right way means that you've got to actually get skilled up in instructional design. And then there are specific ways that you set up your resume and your LinkedIn profile to make your application in that mix of 100 other applicants actually stand out. So while there are a lot of people that are coming into the field of instructional design, it's not saturated. There are a lot of people that are going for jobs, but they're not necessarily doing it the right way. Plus, check this out. Right now, the education industry is a $1.4 trillion industry, but by 2030, it is expected to grow by 3.1 trillion. So where we see a growth of 3.1 trillion, then that means that field is growing, right? So that means that there are more opportunities for us as instructional designers. Those opportunities are going to span areas like ed tech. We'll see it in corporate. We'll see it in freelancing. We actually have a freelancing course that's coming up where we're going to talk about all the opportunities for instructional designers in the freelance space, not for profit, right? So there are a lot of opportunities for instructional designers because it's such a big field. So this is super exciting news for you. All right. So then the next thing that I want to talk about is how you can reignite your passion as an educator by making this career move into instructional design. And I know at the beginning of this that I said that we were going to do that last, but I shifted it up a little bit because I think it really sets the foundation for the 3 steps that we're about to talk about. So again, as a teacher that's making that exit out of the classroom, you went for that job, not for the money, right? Because we all know that teachers aren't getting paid the big bucks, but we went into teaching because we want to make a difference. We wanted to have a career that we were passionate about. And then life happens, teachers are getting pulled in every other direction. We're expected to create miracles in the classroom with perfectly behaved children, everybody acing the different state tests that are out there, acing all of the standards, right? It's a really big ask for one person. So that causes burnout. Honestly, it causes a lot of burnout. And then that coupled with, in some cases, teachers are working, paycheck by paycheck. And it's just puts a lot of stress on us. So the good news, again, is that as a teacher making the transition into instructional design, we can bring that passion back into our workplace because we get to develop those learning experiences that are actually helping people. So it's a really great and amazing feeling. So we can reignite our passion for education. We're just applying it in a different way. So hopefully that brings you some peace and excitement that you can pull in that passion and get fired up again about creating experiences and helping to develop people. All right, so now let's talk about those 3 steps that you can take to help you build a fulfilling career in instructional design. So number 1 is that you need to know your ID destination. And what I mean by that is that it's helpful for you to know upfront what kind of instructional designer you want to be, because that's going to influence your education path and your skill development. So as an instructional designer, you can work as just an instructional designer. In some organizations, they have just an instructional design role where you do the scripting, create the learning experience, write the outcomes, write the storyboards, do the scoping meetings, write the assessment questions, create the facilitator guides, the participant workbooks. Then in other organizations, there is an instructional designer role and an e-learning developer role. The e-learning developer gets that storyboard from the instructional designer and then uses that storyboard to create the learning experience in a tool like Storyline or Rise or Captivate or one of the other rapid authoring tools that are out there. So that's one setup. Then in other organizations, there's a combo role where the instructional designer does the instructional designer task and the e-learning development task. So they do it all. It's really important for you to have some idea of what might excite you so that you know what path to take, because again, that's going to influence what kind of skill development that you have. It's also helpful for you to know what kind of setting would you most enjoy working in. If you're a teacher coming out of the classroom, maybe you really enjoy that academic setting. You don't really want to go into that corporate 8 to 5 kind of lifestyle. Maybe you want to stay in academia. If that's what makes your heart, get set on fire, then I would recommend that you go for higher ed. Or if you know that you are just done with education, then maybe you want to go for corporate, non-for-profit. Or maybe there's like a somewhere in between where you really do enjoy the academic side of things and you might be interested in the business side of things. Maybe you go for an instructional designer role in an ed tech company. Or maybe you just want to have complete control of your life and you want to go for a freelancing role, or maybe you want to do freelancing on the side, right? So you've got a lot of different options. So you got to know what kind of instructional designer you want to be, or at least have a good idea. It's not a marriage proposal. You can always change your mind later. And then also think about what instructional design setting that you want to work in, because again, that influences what skills you need to develop. So step 2 is about knowing your ID skill gaps. So you've got to do that assessment of where you're starting, what skills you have, and then what skills are missing. And then that becomes your gap from where you are to where you want to go. And just as a quick reminder from our recent episode of the 6 teacher skills that you can leverage, this is just a quick summary of what some of those teacher skills you have are. So again, these are in buckets. You've got project planning, communication, collaboration, technology, teaching, curriculum development. Really, we call project planning, project management, in instructional design, but those tasks are very similar. So do this assessment, figure out where you're starting, think about what kind of instructional designer you want to be, in what kind of work setting, and then look at what skills are needed for that. And the way that you figure out what skills are needed for that are go out and look at a few of those jobs and see what those job postings are asking for. Or you can download our instructional design starter kit and we list some of those skills for you. Then on to step 3 this is where you start to work on reskilling and filling your knowledge gaps, right? And again, there are different ways that you can do that. You could do self-study, as we talked about before. You can do a certificate program. You could go back and get another degree, not required, but if you want one, you can. Or check out our Instructional Design and Tech Accelerator certificate program. But again, as I said before, whatever option you choose, just make sure that it's staying up with current trends. It's pulling in AI, because you want to have skills that are relevant today. And the way that AI is moving into our work life is that what we knew 6 months ago may be obsolete at this point, right? So you've just got to keep up with what's trending so that you know how to position yourself the best. Think about what your budget is, think about what your timeline is, and then just make that choice that is best for you in your current situation. I like to advise the students in my Accelerator program to have their future employer pay for their master's degree if they really want to get one, because a lot of organizations have a tuition reimbursement program where they will pay, for whatever grade that you make, whether it's 100% for an A or a 90% for an A. At least there's some sort of tuition assistance that you can capitalize on so that it doesn't all come out of your pocket. So just as a quick recap, the 3 steps that you can take to build a fulfilling career in instructional design are: know your ID destination, meaning what kind of ID do you want to be? What kind of instructional design setting do you want to work in? Identify your skill gaps. So do an assessment of what skills you have today. Do some research on the type of instructional design job that you want. Figure out which skills are missing. And then that becomes your development plan. And then look at which path will help you develop those skills based on your timeline and your budget. So again, I do encourage you to go back and check out our 6 teacher skills that you can leverage immediately as an instructional designer, because that's really going to talk you through not only the skills that you do have, but some of the skills that you need to develop to become an instructional designer who also does e-learning. So definitely check that out.